It's Brenda Meller with Meller Marketing, bringing you back for another slice of social media pie. And today we're actually going to be talking about a book called Social Media Pie. I have a very special guest with me here today, Staley. Hey, Don, how are you doing today?
Hi, Brenda. Hi, everybody. Doing wonderful,
Good.
and thank you for having me.
Good.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And Don, you were the person who helped me to get here, I have to say. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today, kind of the self-publishing journey. Before we do so, I just want to take a moment for those of you who are watching. If you're watching this live on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, could you do me a favor? Could you leave a comment below? And here's my little hack, guys. If you're watching this on like your desktop and you don't want to leave a comment because I know sometimes it hiccups and then you have to find the stream again, this is what I do. This is my hack. You ready for this? So watch it on your desktop and then go to your LinkedIn app on the phone, go to my profile, and then in the activity feed section, you should see the live stream. And if you leave a comment there on your phone, it won't disrupt what you're seeing on screen. I didn't design LinkedIn Live that way, but I figured out little workarounds that will help you guys. So I want you to do that. And then I'll start to pull your comments on screen. Now, when you guys comment, Don and I will know the live stream is working. And that's really important as a presenter to me, that you guys can hear us, you can see us, everything's working as it should be. So do drop a comment if you're watching this so I know that you guys are watching. And I saw the first comment just come in, and I'm going to just pull that up on screen right now, Don, and then we'll get our conversation. So this one's LinkedIn user. I can't see who you are because of probably your privacy settings, but I can see it's saying, oh, it's Allison J. So she's got her privacy set up. Hey, Allison, thank you so much for joining. All right, so we're going to jump into this conversation. This is Social Media Pie, the self-publishing journey. And I want to just take a moment, tell you guys how I met Don. So Don, when was this? Was this September 2019? Does that sound right?
Yeah, it was September or October, whenever the Rochester Writers Conference was. So I think it was, I don't remember if it was September or October, but over a year ago.
It was over a year ago. And I was asked to speak at the conference by Michael Dwyer. And he said, hey, why don't you come and do a LinkedIn talk? And I'm like, sure, I'll do a LinkedIn for writers, right? And I'll put together this presentation. And I don't remember what day it was, but I remember I was presenting. I remember you were in the audience in my room. And then afterwards, I went out and sat in the lobby, and you were sitting, a couple chairs away. And we started just, chitty-chatting. And I was like, hey, were you in there? What did you think? And you're like, yeah, it was great stuff. And then I asked you, I'm like, what are you here for? And you're like, I think you had another session. You were in a panel later on that day. Is that right?
Yeah, I did a panel, and then I did a talk as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. So we were making small conversation, and I said, what do you do? And you told me, and I'll give you a second. And then you said, yeah, I've got a book for sale at the table. And I was like, oh, what is it? And this is the book, How to Write a Book in 30 Days. And I'm like, wow, that's really cool. So I bought it. And Don autographed it, and I got a picture of him, at the event that day. And I guess the rest is history, but that's maybe the beginning of the story. So Don, for those people that are watching that don't know who you are, why don't you take a couple minutes, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
So obviously I'm Don Staley, and I help people go through the process of getting their book written and getting it published. And, I guess one of the reasons I can do that is because I struggled with my book for years and years and years, put it off. I wrote, I don't know how many different versions of different books and put them in a file cabinet. Actually, a couple of them are still over there, but I never was able to get it done. And once I got it done, I people started asking me, how do you write a book? How do you write a book? So it kind of took me down this whole other path of life organically, which is really cool. And I get to help people like Brenda and others who have challenges, because it's not easy. It's a challenge to, go through that process. A lot of people don't know, where do I start? What do I do? So I get to help them through that process, which is really cool.
That's awesome. And I love I remember the backstory reading your book as well, where you talked a little bit about where you came from and that you've gone through the process yourself. And it reminds me in some aspects of me and what I do on LinkedIn. Why do I teach people? Because I had to learn my way through it. And then people started approaching me and they would say, hey, Brenda, can you show me how you post? Can you show me what you do in your about statement? And it was like, I wasn't planning on becoming a quote unquote expert. I had a knack for it. And it sounds like for you as well, you were able to kind of pull that together. So let me ask you, you wrote this book, How to Write a Book in 30 Days. How long did this take you to write? I mean, from the idea to the publishing.
So now in just so people don't freak out, that wasn't my first book. That was my sixth book. So I had some experience. I had some practice. I knew exactly what to do. I knew how to get myself to take the action, and which is the biggest thing, is getting yourself to take the action. So that book took me 20 days. So I'm writing this book, How to Write a Book in 30 Days. And the first thought I'm thinking, I'm like, well, of course I have to write this in less than 30 days. So I set a goal of 20 days and I did it. And it was, like 41,000 words. So basically, if you do the math, and I have a simple formula for people to, like, as we shared with you, know, how to calculate exactly, when you can be done and all that. So
yeah, and
just a formula.
I mean, the process is really like, you gotta commit to it, is part of it. And I remember, for me, and I even think about, I had been thinking about writing a book forever, like forever and ever, and probably 2 to 3 years really, but forever in my mind, right? And I even had a couple outlines I was kicking around, and then I remember there's that, what's it called in November? NaNoWriMo. It's like National Writers Month. There's an acronym for it.
Yeah.
I can't think of it, but I was like, well, maybe I do that, right? And it's just, nothing happened with it. And then I met you, we had this conversation, I read your book, and I mean, you could do this on your own. You don't have to work with someone,
absolutely.
Right? But when do people come to you? I mean, what is it that's holding them back from getting it done on their own, where they, like, I mean, I know why I came to you, but why do people come to you?
It's interesting. I get to meet people in different stages of their process. And a lot of times, for the most part, people don't know, because it's a big goal. I mean, you just experienced it. It's kind of like, almost giving birth, really. Not that I know what that's like, but I mean, I've been on the outside watching it. But there's so many moving parts that we just don't know. And that's what happened for me. I didn't know, where do I start? What do I do? What do I do next? All these things. And so I had to figure all that out. And that's what I help people. So I meet people on their journey when they haven't even written one word, so they're still thinking about it. They might have an idea, maybe they have 10 ideas, they're not even sure. And then I meet people who have already written the book and they need to get it, edited and, go through that process and whatever. So I meet people along the way, but generally it's like, people, know how to write per se, it's just that they're not exactly sure of how to put it into book form or all these other things about, being an author of a book. But mostly it's the mindset thing. It's really a mindset thing. And, a lot of people, I teach classes where, how to write a book in 30 days. And some people have been thinking about it for generally about 10, 15 years, but some people have been thinking about it for 50 years. I had one lady who was, I think she was 80 some years. I mean, she was older, and she says, I don't know if I know enough to write the book.
80 years old. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, you dear woman, you're 100 times smarter than me and probably have a million things. But, it's just, it's the mindset, and it's the issue of dealing with self-doubt and all these other things that all of us are dealing with on a regular basis.
Yeah, good point. And for me, I mean, the struggle that I had was, it felt so overwhelming, I guess, kind of echoing what you were just saying. It was like the process of going through, and I had friends who had gone through self-publishing, and I'll admit to you, I started watching the YouTube videos. And if there's anybody watching who's thinking about writing a book, you're probably going through the same phases, right? You start Googling things and maybe posting on Facebook and asking around, hey, I'm thinking about writing a book. How do I get started? And then I looked through all the YouTube videos, and I saw one person who said, create a Google Drive and write a chapter and put them each in separate documents so you can move things around. And I kind of started dabbling there. But for me, it was like, I started hitting these mental hurdles of, how do I get this listed on Amazon? Where do I send it to print? How do I get the best pricing for that? How do I find a proofreader? What about the index in the back? I mean, it's all these things. It was so overwhelming. And then I started getting frozen. And then I stopped writing. I wouldn't even do writing because I was so overwhelmed. Is that common? I mean, it seems like if you're committed to it, you can go all the way through it, but do people get stuck like that? I mean, is that just me or?
Absolutely. I mean, it's absolutely common. It's normal. I mean, it's just because there's so many moving parts. And here's the thing is, it's, if you use the analogy of a football game, it's like they're trying to get to the goal before they even gotten the first down. Right. And so we need to, not to use a sports analogy, but you basically need to keep getting these little first downs along the way. And eventually you're going to score the goal. But it's just like anything in writing a book, you have to, obviously start with the end in mind, as Stephen Covey says, and you work backwards. But you have to, the first thing is write the book. And if you don't know, one of the things I share in my book, as you probably know, is the I call it the note storming exercise, where you can kind of outline, excuse me, outline different ideas or chapters or whatever your concepts are, and then go work from there and move them around. But the first thing is obviously get the book done. But if you don't know how to do that, find a book or find some videos. There's a lot of information out there. The challenge with that is it becomes, convoluted with so much information, and people have different styles and strategies. So kind of pick one horse, whoever it is, and, pick the horse and ride it and take it to the end if they have a proven system, that is.
Yeah. And I like that. And I mean, you kind of helped, I think in your book, you did a great job too of breaking it down, making it more of a process. And I like to think about, if you want to get in shape and lose weight, you don't just do one workout and you're done. You have to kind of commit to every morning. I'm going to get up before the kids get up and before my workday starts, and I'm going to do yoga for 30 minutes. And at the end of the day, I'm going to do some weight training. And at the end of the month, you start to feel a definition in your arms, and you're not feeling so saggy about the midline. And it's a slow and gradual process to get to that. I mean, for me, the turning point for me was, it was like the universe was telling me, Don, I mean, I go to this conference. We didn't have to meet. I mean, you were sitting in the, you didn't come up and pitch me. You didn't come up and sell me. You didn't even say, hey, I have a book at the table. I started asking you questions, and I was like, wow, I didn't know there was people like you out there that did this. Like, they coach people through the process. So, for me, the turning point was, it was going to the conference. You were there. It was like the universe kept saying, Brenda, you need to do this. And then there's this book, and then I read your book, and I read it in a weekend. So if you guys are interested, I'll drop the link in comments a little later. And I read it in a weekend, and I was like fired up. I was like, I'm doing it.
Yay.
And I was like, enough talking about it already. And for me too, if there's people that are watching, if you get people asking you, hey, where can I buy your book? And this was like, I didn't even have an idea for a book. What books do you have for sale? If you're speaking at a conference, where can I buy your books? And I'm like, I don't have any books. You don't have a book? It seems like you should have like a couple books already. And it was like, for me, I enough is enough. I met Don, I read this book. I'm like, okay, I got to do it. So for me, that was the turning point. What other people, when they're thinking about, I mean, what was it for you? What was your turning point in writing your first book or your second book or your third book?
It all goes back to the mindset thing. And so one of the first things, I don't know, I like most people, I guess, go way back to make not to give you a really long story, but to go way back. I struggled with health and fitness for 20 years. I would start on a program, I'd stop, I'd start, stop. I think pretty much everyone can relate to that. And then I went to a conference in San Diego, and I hired a coach. I made an investment that I didn't have, money laying in a sock drawer, but I made an investment. It was a stretch. Hired this person, and they coached me through the process of learning the mindset. It was about business, but it was about everything. Okay. And it opened my eyes, and I learned so much in that short period of time. And here, like the old saying is, ask and you shall receive. But I was asking and pounding on the door forever and ever. And it just seemed like, okay, when am I going to learn this? But it finally came through. And when I did that, I exercised every day for, at that point, it was like a couple years in a row without missing a day. I went like 6.5 years without missing a single day. Now it's been 14 years or whatever, and I missed like 4 days. So but once I got that mindset right, I'm like, okay, I figured this out, because I struggled with health and fitness. I'm like, okay, if I figured it out. I know I wasn't the only one struggling with it. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to write this down. So I basically backtracked and I wrote everything down. Like, what did I do? What did I think? And all the affirmations, all those different things. And I wrote it down, and it became my #1 best-selling book, Fit Mind, Fit Body. Wow. But it took me a while to get over the mental hurdles that I had about, I failed English class in college. I was in the 1/3 of the class. I joke about this. I was in the 1/3 of the class that made the top 2/3 possible. Right. So that's where I was. I mean, and if I can write a book, failing English class in college and doing all these different things. I mean, if I can do it, you can do it. And that's what I tell, my students or my classes or whatever, my clients, if I can do this, you can do this, because, they're most likely a better writer than I ever was when I started. But that's how, it was a mindset thing.
Yeah.
And once at first, before I even wrote my first book, I co-authored 2 books. So it was an anthology book. I wrote a chapter, excuse me. And then I wrote another chapter in the second one. And I got to believe that I hey, I think I can write the book. And so once you get past, it's kind of like, Morpheus and Neo in the Matrix, they're like, he's beginning to believe, right? Yeah, and so we're all going through this on a lot of different levels. And that was, for me, what I was going through in the book level. And once you make that decision, I think Wayne Dyer says, if you have infinite patience, you'll have immediate results. And so I made a decision that I don't care how long it takes. I don't care what I have to do. I'm going to commit every day, every single day, until this is done. And then boom, I got my first book done. And once you get the first one, so I wrote the first book, and then within, something in me said, keep writing, keep writing, keep writing. And so I wrote for the next 30 days, I wrote Every Day Counts. So in 30 days, I wrote my second book, but I already had the habits and everything. And then, but it's just, it's a skill, just like everything else, you learn, you practice, you repeat, and, go from there. So that's kind of my version.
There might be people watching, like people like me. Like, I published my first book. Okay, I got the first one under the belt, and I'm just in the phases of it just hit my doorstep last Saturday, and I'm getting the books mailed out, and it just went up on Amazon. I had some hiccups getting it listed up there, but it got up on Amazon. I'm already I have 2 other books right now I'm thinking of, and one is like the entrepreneurship journey and how to leave corporate successfully and still be a success. And there's going to be a nice story there. And then the other one is I've been taking pictures along of through this entire pandemic. I'm a marketer. So anytime I've been out in public and I've seen a picture of a wear a mask sign, or like the stickers they have on the floor, or like even like the crudely, Sharpie marker sign on a door, I've been documenting since probably April, taking pictures. So I'm going to put together like a picture book at some point. So how long do you recommend between book 1 and book 2 for people? I'm just curious.
So that's a great question. And it depends on what your goal is. What do you want, and we talked about this when we first started your book. That's one of the first things I asked is like, what do you want to accomplish with this? And so it depends on what a person wants with their book. Mark Victor Hansen and Jack Canfield, most people are probably familiar with Chicken Soup for the Soul. It was originally rejected 166 times. I mean, think about that for a second, by publishers. But what they say is that, basically they say you got to do 5 things every single day in terms of marketing your book. And if you do that, eventually, if you stick with it long enough, eventually it's going to make a big mark. So it just depends on what you want to do. I mean, and some people just want to be prolific and they write and write and write, which is great. And, there's nothing wrong with that. There's no judgment either way. It just depends on what the person wants to do. So, if you want to keep moving and keep getting content out there and, then go for it. You wouldn't have to necessarily wait. But, then again, you're taking your focus off your first book or whatever. Right. So, I mean, you have to evaluate, what do you want to do and what are you trying to accomplish? So,
yeah. And I want to give another shout out. You give me so many resources along the way working with you. And one was this book. So this is called 1,001 Ways to Market Your Books. I bought this off of Amazon. Look at the size of this, you guys. This is like Encyclopedia Britannica times. I mean, it's like there's so many things in here, and I think this person updates this every couple of years. So I barely even cracked it because I'm still kind of working through the ideas that I have on how to market my book. Eventually, I'll go through here and I'll start pulling out an idea. And it's 1,001 ways. This could be like the next 3 years. I pick one day from this book and keep going with it, right?
So yeah, and that's a great point, Brenda. And a person can get bogged down with all these ideas and like 1,001 ideas. There's no way you could execute all those ideas. So my suggestion is just pick, 5 or 10 ideas that resonate with you that you would do. Because you can have a million ideas, but if you don't execute and you don't do any of those, it isn't going to matter. You're just like going to fantasize about it the whole time. So find 5 or 6 that resonate with you. Obviously, LinkedIn would be one of them for sure for you.
Oh, yeah.
But, and you may be able to help John, tweak that part of his book with LinkedIn tips or whatever. But anyway, just find a few that work for you and then go for it.
Yeah, so that's a good point. And like I said, I haven't even touched it. Yeah, I'm kind of using my background as a marketer, and I'm also I'm using some of my vulnerability. I'm kind of letting people know genuinely, like, these are the experiences I'm having at every phase of the way. And, there's been all these little victories for me. It points to the process. And I think this process started in, I made the commitment to work with you in October. And there was a financial commitment that was involved. The bigger commitment was a mental commitment. I'm going to do this. And it's a 3-month program. I'm going to work with you to get this done. And I got off the phone with you, Don, and I kid you not, I grabbed my camera and I took a picture of myself smiling. I was like, oh, Permagrin. I'm like, this is going to happen. I'm committing to this. And I took a picture and I posted it on LinkedIn. And I'm like, you guys, I'm committed. I'm going to be working with a coach. It's going to happen. And telling people on LinkedIn, that helped to keep me accountable. I had people reaching out to me and I said, if you see me, ask me how my book's going. And I had people all the time messaging me, texting me, hey, how's it going? And that helped me. So there's other little victory points, along the way. And you and I were talking in the prep call, normally, like when you work with an author, Don, I mean, there's a shipment that occurs. You usually bring that shipment to the person's house if they're in Metro Detroit, where we both are, right?
Yeah.
And you deliver it, and there's a photo op, and we're in a pandemic, and we got to be socially distanced and safe and stuff like that. So in this case, you emailed me and you said, do you want to drop it off, or if you want to not do that, I can have them ship it to you, FedEx. And I'm like, yeah. And then you send me it was like Friday night the week before. And you sent me the email saying, here's the FedEx tracking number, and your 200 books will be coming to you sometime on Saturday. And I immediately am like, no, it's 300 books. It's supposed to be 300 books. And I was like in a panic, like, I thought I was ordering 300 books. And I went back through my emails and I'm like, no, it was 200. That's what the quantity we agreed on. But in my mind, it was like I had mixed up the word count and the number of books, right?
Yeah.
But then the next day, Saturday, I got up in the morning and I'm tracking, like when I went to bed Friday night, it had already been dispersed from the production facility, and it was in, I don't know where it was, like Canton, Michigan. It was in some warehouse. It said that. And then I got up Saturday morning, it's on the truck, and I was like, oh, it's on the truck. And then it was out for delivery, and I'm literally like a kid, I look at, is the bus here? Is the bus here? School bus in the morning. And every time I heard anything that sounded like a truck, it was like, oh my gosh, it might be here. And then the truck pulled up, and I told the guy, I'm like, I just published a book. And he's bringing these cases of books up. And then I waited until later that afternoon because my son was out, and I wanted to have my family. So for me, that was another victory moment, like cracking that case open. And you can use that childbirth analogy. It really was like the doctor handing you the baby. It was like, this is the thing I've been working on, which feels like 9 months at this point. So you got your book, right, Don? So I dropped one off to you this morning.
Yes.
You got your book.
Yes.
Your copy of my book. So I'm sorry we can't be doing this in person because I would have brought you a pie. Yeah. But there's two reasons I didn't give you a pie with the book. One is I know you're a healthy person, and two, we're after the holidays. I don't know about you, but all the heavy foods and everything, I'm kind of like in a cleansing mode right now. I'm in like a smoothie, spinach, But that's something you typically do though, right? You meet with people, you get the photo op with them after they get the books in hand.
Yeah, because as you know, when we become friends, it's not like there's a client relationship there, but we're in the trenches, and we're working through some deep stuff sometimes, and so we become friends, and what I do is wonderful because I get to help people see and realize dreams that they've been thinking about in many cases for 5, 10, or 15 years or more. Yeah. And then when they finally do that, it's so fun to be there to see it's like a birth. It really is. I've been there for both of my kids' births, and it's just like, I wouldn't have missed that for the world. I mean, and you can't really even describe that. But a book is obviously not quite to that level, but it's it's the closest thing that I've ever experienced in life from that. And so I love to be there. Part of the process, and some people have champagne. I had limoncello or whatever. This time I was hoping for some pie, but that's okay. I'm gonna get a rain check on that. I know you're gonna make me a pie someday. But anyway, and that's all good and well. We have to be adaptive to what's going on in our environment and all that, and I understand that. But yeah, in the Metro Detroit area, if it's and even a little bit outside of the Metro Detroit, I will do delivery. But that doesn't have to happen. If people don't want that, that's fine too. I'm flexible, but I like to be there because it's kind of like, your book is almost like, I don't know what having a grandkid's like, because my kids are not that old yet. But
extended relative in the process, like it's just as much. It's an accomplishment for you, not just as much, because I know it's my book, but you're invested in it at that point.
Absolutely.
And I think what I learned from you, and there's been others too, celebrate it and every step of the way. If you guys are going through self-publishing, tell people about it every step of the way. Tell people when you've committed. I mean, And Don, at one point we were trying to figure out what's the title and what's the subtitle. And I think you even said, why don't you ask your LinkedIn community? And I was like, I didn't even think about that. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't even think about that. And in the covers, I mean, there was a couple different cover designs early on I wasn't a huge fan of. And I'm like, I don't know. You're like, well, why don't you ask people on your LinkedIn? I'm like, that's a good idea. So I put it out there, and I got reactions that were confirming what I was feeling. And then I went through and did some different, I did some photos and some different options on the front cover. And the one we came up with was actually a variation of a few. And I wanted to have my picture. That was one thing that people said, your book isn't just about LinkedIn. There's a million people out there that talk about it. It's about you too. It's your personality. And then the other part was the apple pie on the front cover. And I'm like, is this, my mouth is watering right now. Thank you. But it's the, you know, getting people involved, and what I found was effective for me, and I'm curious if other, you know, people you work with as well, is getting people involved. It makes it part of them too.
Absolutely.
They know that their input was heard. And then I had people, I think we started in this process October, so around November, people started saying, do you have a pre-sale page? And then I think I said, Don, do I need to do a pre-sale page? What is that, this pre-sale page? Like, you can sell your book before it's done? What is that? But is this a, I mean, I don't know if this is probably in the book, 1,000 Ways to Market, like getting people involved early on, right? Before it's actually published?
You know, I don't know if it's in that book or not. That's not where I learned it, but, or may it was, I don't remember, but it's just, you know, I think it was just kind of like, okay, what do I do? You know, and I'm like, okay, well, I have all these people I told on, you know, different social media platforms. And I'm like, okay, why not ask them? You know, because I'm not going to be the one buying the book, although I'm buying them all. But I mean, they're going to be the ones that are going to be, you know, voting with their dollars, so to say. And so why not get their feedback, see what they want? And, you know, and I share that with our clients. And one of the great things about having a coach, and same for me, is I can't see like the tip of my nose, you know, unless I'm looking in the mirror. A coach can help you see things that you might not have thought of, because you're right there in the trees and you don't really see the forest through the trees. So, and that's one of the things I appreciate about my coaches. I can do that too. And same with you, is something so obvious, like you're a LinkedIn master, and you have all this big community. Why not ask them? And then they can tell you, okay, because these are actually very precise members of your community that are going to be curious about LinkedIn, because they're there already. So
yeah. And there was things that, like, I mean, some of the feedback I got from people was kind of harsh, and some I didn't agree with. Like, one thing was, I mean, pink is my brand color, right? And they were like, in the book, is the spine is pink and everything in here too. And they were like, pink is too girly. Men are not going to buy your book if it's pink. And I, you know, it's kind of like when you name your child. There's so many analogies to parenthood too. It's when you name your child, and it's because you love the name. Some people are going to go, Raffaella, that reminds me of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you know, and they're not going to like it. But you have to kind of figure out your own brand, and you even said that to me. You got to, you know, take out the things that are valid, and then the things that you don't agree with, you know, push them aside. Even through the editing process, you told me that too. Like, you're going to come back, and there was a proofreader we were working with in the first round. They came back with a lot of changes, and some I said, yep, I totally agree with. There were typos. Others were stylistic. And I said, no, this is like, sometimes I talk in fragments, and they wanted to correct them to be proper English. And I said, nope, this is my voice, right? So, I mean, tell us a little bit more about that process. When is it okay to say stand your ground on things if you're self-publishing, and when should you defer to the experts?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, you know, I guess the quick answer is basically, you know, you trust your heart, you trust your gut. You know, I know to defer to, you know, like, for instance, my editor in terms of grammar, because I am absolutely not an expert at grammar, but I am an expert at my voice. Like you were saying, you know, I know my voice and what I want to communicate and how I want to say it. I might not necessarily have the exact words to articulate it, but I'll know exactly if it's me, if it's authentically me, then I want to keep it me, because I don't want to try to be like someone else, because everyone else is taken. So yeah, I mean, I guess that would be my answer, is if you in your gut or in your heart know that, okay, this is how I want it to be. Yeah. You know, and sometimes it's a risk. I mean, it's kind of like Monday, what do they call it? Monday morning coach or quarterback or whatever. You know? So, you know, there are some things that, you know, hey, let the editor do it, or let the book designer do it, or whatever. But then there are things like, okay, I want it like this. And and that's, you know, you just go with your gut.
Yeah. And another piece of advice I think you had given me too, that might be valid for people that are thinking about writing a book. And we were talking about pricing and, you know, how do I price this? And I kind of was thinking in my head this number, and you kind of gave me another number. And you said, you know, why don't you look it up on Amazon and see what other books in your category, what they're going for. And at the same time, I was looking at what do their titles look like? What is their what do their photography, their artwork on the front cover look like? And then I even started to think about people in my network who had self-published. And I'm going to give some shout outs. My friend Tina Marie, you know, she wrote this book, Stop, Collaborate, and Listen. She works in the HR community, and I really liked it. And what did I like about her book? I mean, I liked the clean white cover.
Nice cover.
I liked the style of writing. There's so many things I liked about it. And then another point of inspiration for me was this gentleman, John Asperian. He's in the UK. And there's actually elements of his book that I have incorporated. I'm going to show you one. Like, he signs his book, you guys, I kid you not, with the colors of his brand. like
That's
his
cool.
content DNA. So he bought like blue, and there's, I don't know if you can tell the little green dot, that's like a green Sharpie. So I bought, it's in the other room, but I bought like a pink magenta Sharpie, and that's what I'm signing when I'm autographing the books. And you know, I looked at the books of people that I liked, even if they weren't in my category, and I got inspiration. What did I like about them? You know, the length, the font, even looking at, you know, there's things in the beginning, Don, like not even the foreword, but the acknowledgments and all this published by information, you know, the disclaimers and copyright. I mean, that kind of stuff. That's part of the overwhelming, right? What do I put in here? But you can look around on your bookshelf and find some of this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of examples out there for, you know, you can do research for free. You know, it's going to take you time, or have someone do it for you, you know, on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, just online, whatever. And you're going to find cover designs that you like, what you don't like, you know, titles that you like, you don't like. And you can kind of get an idea. Same with pricing, you know, are you in that range? And we talked about your book. You know, most people have we're conditioned to believe that, you know, you get a book for under $25, but your book, Brenda, is probably over $100 worth of content, probably more than that even. So, I mean, if I don't know why you're waiting, if you haven't bought Brenda's book yet, go get it right now. So, because, you know, there's a ton of content.
And Don doesn't make any money on that, by the way.
Yeah, I don't. But, you know, because we talked about this early on, you know, because what you're putting in there is well over $100 worth of content that someone would be paying for a home study course or whatever. But society, the market has this condition that most people aren't going to spend more than $25 for a book. So that's what we're kind of playing in that realm. But what the content is in here is worth a lot more than that. And so, I mean, that's just a few things to consider when you're, you know, thinking about price and all these other things. Yeah.
And I remember you had guided me too on, you know, when you set the price point, and even when you think about how many books do you want to order, thinking about, there's going to be people that buy this from you. And then you also may use the book as almost like a calling card, right? And you give this to prospects, or maybe you bring it with you if you're a speaker to an event and you give it to a free copy to select people in the audience, or maybe you build it into your speaker budget. You say, okay, I'll present at your conference for $3,500, or you can add an additional 100 copies of my book in there for $500, give it away to everybody who's in the room, and then you're getting it into other people's hands. So talk to us a little bit about that. I mean, when you're publishing, when you're self-publishing, it's not just the money that you're making from the book. It's like, I think there can be an extension, is what I remember you saying.
Yeah, and I would think a lot of the audience here may be professionals and, you know, small business owners. I mean, this would be a great thing for them as, you know, a glamorous business card. You go to a networking event, everybody has a business card, you know, and then what do? You go home, and the really good ones will follow up, and they'll put them in their contacts and they'll follow up. But most people will just, you know, put them on the drawer or whatever, and they'll never talk to somebody, or they'll throw them away. And so, but if someone gives you a book, and I've had many instances where it's happened to me, you know, I'll go and someone give me a book and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. You know, I mean, I remember that person. I mean, I probably met, you know, 50 or 100 people at that event, but I don't remember them as well as I remember the person that gave me the book. And so then I have the book in back, you know, I could turn around here and I have several of those books still. Yeah. And, you know, you just don't, I mean, how many people throw away books? I mean, I'm a little bit different. I have a library here, but so when you give away your book, you're also, you know, you're giving them, hey, here's a piece of me, you know, take, you know, have some read this content, learn, or whatever. And so then there's kind of the law of reciprocity and all that stuff as well. So, but it's a great way to, you know, get your word out there, get your name out there. And most people aren't going to throw a book away. They might sell it, but, you know, but you're going to leave something in their mind like, okay, this person's a little bit different. And one of the things as business people, we're trying to stand out, and we're like waving our flags or whatever we're doing. We're putting videos up and blogging and all these things, and we're trying to make ourselves, we're differentiating ourselves from all these other people. One of the biggest I'm having a hard time talking.
You're excited.
Say that word. I know, I am excited. Is to write a book, and if you write a book, because very few people will go through the process of writing a book, and so that sets you separate. It sets you, not that you're better than them or anyone else, and I don't think that. I think we're all, you know, the same. But it sets you a little bit apart from everybody else. And so then, you know, people will consider you for whatever they're trying to, you know, accomplish.
You just reminded me, I used to work for in the higher education field. And I remember there was a statistic that only, I think, like less than 1% of the population has a terminal degree, like a doctor or a PhD or something like that. And I wonder if, I'm sure there's a data point out there, how many people have published a book, like legitimately published a book, like what percentage of the population? It's probably like, a pretty low percentage. So now you come into those ranks of the people that are published. And for me, I mean, there's all these different victory points along the way, but like it going live on Amazon, I was like, oh my God, I see my name on Amazon. There's an author. I set up my author page. It's live. Like people can click a button and buy my book. It was like so cool. And it's like the back end of Amazon. Most of us as consumers, it's the front end. We go in and we search for things and we buy. The back end of Amazon is a much different operation. It's like, the Wizard of Oz, the guy with the curtain. There's so many forms and things you have to upload. And there's this site called KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing, where you basically upload your files, and then and somebody orders it, they print on demand. So I don't do any inventorying of that. I don't do any shipping of that. And you and I talked about, Don, at the beginning of the process, how do I want to handle fulfillment? And do I order 100 books, or do I order more than that? And I'm like, I'll order 200. And once I get through those, I'll, maybe go the Kindle Direct. So they do all the printing and publishing, and they send me a check at the end of the month or whatever it is for the royalties, basically. But you shared with me the benefits of printing and outsource, or really handling the printing on my own versus Amazon doing that. So can you share that with our audience?
Yeah, in your situation, you do talks and presentations, and you have a network of people already out there. So when you go, you can bring your books, and it isn't going to cost you $10 a copy, because I don't know what they charge. It depends on the book or whatever. But you have them on hand. You can bring them with you. You can use it as an incentive for speaking and all those different things that we talked about. So there's it just depends on a person's situation. And the other thing is like the distribution part. And Amazon is just one, although it's a behemoth, but there's, Goodreads, there's, and I sent you a list of, probably a dozen different other platforms that you can get out there on. And it's good to be, diversified, in case one goes down or whatever happens. So, but yeah, it depends on the person's situation. And that's the first thing to do, is find out, what are you really trying to accomplish? What do you want to do with this? And, then you kind of work backwards from there. So in order to get there, you do this.
Yeah. And what I found too, you shared this with me too, is if you do the fulfillment on your own and people order it through your website, you get their mailing address and maybe their email address, and then you can send them additional information. If you get them opted in, you can add them to your email list. And for me, you can buy it on my website and I'll autograph it. And then I have to go to the post office and mail it out to you. But then I need to account for international shipping. I need to at least put a little disclaimer. If it's outside of the US, I'm going to email you an invoice before I ship it out. And it's media rate mail, it's a little bit cheaper, but it's it's handling that. And for me, it's like, I really had this mental block down of like, how am I ever going to sell 200 books? How am I ever going to sell that? And as of today, you guys, I'm at like, I think 164 books sold. So, and the book has only been really in hand since last Saturday. So I'm still kind of shocked that I got there so quickly, but then I'm also looking forward to having Amazon handle the fulfillment, because here's the thing: when you sell 164 books, you have to do next. You have to autograph 164 books. You got to print labels for 164 books. You got to put them on the envelope, ship them out. So there's a lot of steps that are involved. And Don, you probably saw when I dropped your book off, I got some fancy packaging. Do you like that pink envelope? Yeah. Wasn't that fun?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm like, okay, there it is.
There it is. It's all branding. Yeah.
That's absolutely beautiful. It totally fits your brand. So it was very, very helpful. Cool.
So if you guys have any questions, you can drop those in now. I've been seeing a couple comments coming a long way. Denise had asked the question, would love to read both of your books. How do we find them? So Don, tell us about how can people find this is the one book we talked about. I know you have other books. Where can people find them?
Yeah, they can, obviously they can go to Amazon.com and they can search, my name, Don Staley, Staley, and the author, and it'll pop up on my books, or you can search the title and put my author name in as well, and it'll bring it right to the top. Or I was mentioning earlier on our, pre-call here, or when we were talking earlier, for those who are serious about writing a book. So if you're just thinking about doing this maybe someday in the future, go to Amazon, whenever you're ready. But if you're seriously ready in the next 3 or 6 months and you're like, okay, Brenda got me pumped up, I'm going to do this. then I would offer a gift for you is if you contact me at don@donstaley.com with your name and, what your book, just a little quick thing about what your book's going to be about and your address, I will ship it to you for free. So, but I don't want to just ship this if you're in the, continental United States. If you're outside internationally, let me know and we can work out the shipping on that because, I don't, I want to go too far, but I'm kind of meeting you halfway away anyway. But so if you're serious about this in the next 3 or 6 months, send me an email, don@donstaley.com, and I'll send you a free copy and, you go from there. If you're thinking about, maybe next year, 6 months or a year, whatever, then just go on Amazon whenever you're ready and get it from there. So.
Okay, and I just put that in the LinkedIn comments, and I'm going to pull it up on screen right now too for those of you who are watching. If you're watching the playback, you can come back. I think that's awesome, Don. It's so nice of you to do that, to be able to offer that to people. And then I did pull up your website up on screen here, Don. I know you have a lot of resources, and I mean you don't need to book a coaching session with Don. You don't need to contract with him like I did. I mean, you could just read the book. But I know that you offer courses and other resources and things like that as well, Don. So can you tell us a little bit about your website, what we can find on there if we're interested in learning more?
Yeah, I mean, the website's a little bit outdated, so I don't, that's on my list to do. But, the best thing, is send me an email. We can have, if you want to have a conversation, that's the other thing I'll do is I'll offer, a free call, 15 minutes or 10 minutes just to discuss it real quick and see if, if we're fit, great. If not, or I can point you in the right direction where I think can help you, or you pick up my book and you go from there. So, I mean, my book, my website definitely needs a little bit of work. So I wouldn't, put too much, weight on that. But, my philosophy is I like to talk to people, like the old school way of, human interaction.
Okay. No, that's perfect. And I know you're on LinkedIn, Don. Do you mind if I pull your profile up on screen?
Yeah, no, go ahead. I mean, you're probably going to give me all kinds of tips. And
well, this is,
I'm sure you've been holding back this whole time. Like, I could get a hold of this guy.
Yeah, well, no, but I if people want advice on their profiles, I will give you advice. I don't want people to feel like, oh, don't pull my profile because you're going to say things. I mean, I will give you a couple pieces of advice. The same thing I would give other people. Like if you're using, even if you're not using LinkedIn, you really should. It's kind of like having a website. You want to have it set up so when people go and look for you, they are finding information that helps to confirm, yes, you're credible. Yes, you're legitimate. You do this for a living. So you've got a nice headshot photo on there. I might zoom in on it a little bit more, make sure it's current, within 5 years, and make sure your face from the top of your forehead to the bottom of your chin is about 50 to 60% of the circle. So you're a little bit too far back, Okay. And I'd like to see it a little bit more zoomed in so we can see your face, that type of thing. And then your header in the background, if I were you, Don, I would use something that is showcasing the books that you have published yourself. Or maybe some banner that talks about, if you need help with self-publishing, contact me. Now, my LinkedIn profile, I haven't changed it out yet, but what I'm going to be doing over the weekend is I am going to swap my banner out so that right now, if you go on my profile, let me just go to mine right now so you guys can see this, but I'm going to be putting my book in the background of my header. So right now it still says, let me navigate to mine. I think it's still on Don's right now, trying to do the co-pilot thing here. But when you go on my profile, you're going to see in the background, it says book presale now open. And that was through last week. So you can still go to that webpage, mellermarketing.com/social media the book. But starting over the weekend, it's going to say social media pie. And it's going to have a picture of the book, the 3-dimensional thing at the top. And then I'm going to add to my profile. I'm going to give myself a promotion to author of my company, Social Media Pie. So then a broadcast notification is going to go out, and you guys are all going to see it if you follow me. You're going to get a little notification. It's going to say, congratulate Brenda on being promoted to author at Social Media Pie. And that's a marketing opportunity. The people that congratulate me on the timeline, I'm going to respond back and give you the link to purchase my book, right? Yeah, and the people that message me one-to-one, I'm going to say, here's the link if you want to learn more about it. So there's a marketing opportunity with that. So, there's ways we can use our profile. So Don, I just want to say thank you so much. I could not have gotten to the point that I'm at. I could not have gotten to be a self-published author without your help, my friend. So thank you so much.
Thank you for taking me on the journey. It was a lot of fun.
All right. So any final comments before we wrap up here today? There might be a couple would-be authors that are kind of waffling on the fence. Like, what do I do? How do I get started? Any final comments to those folks?
Yeah, it's just take action. We're going to make mistakes no matter what we do. So take action, learn from the mistakes, and keep moving forward. Little by little, you're going to get there. And, there's no guarantee of, with the world going on, what's going on now. I mean, you kind of think about, our mortality, right? And so if you have a message, you have a story, get it out there, because there's no one else that can do it besides you.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. And on that note, just a couple of final comments. There's my link, mellermarketing.com/social media pie, the book. It's a little long, but if you go to my website, mellermarketing.com, there's a link at the very top that says book. Just click on the link and it'll take you right to that page. And for both of our books, you can go on Amazon, search for us, find us there as well. And then one final thing, let me see here. Well, actually, two final things. Go to my mellermarketing.com, subscribe, and you can join my VIP email list where you'll get LinkedIn strategy tips and notifications about my upcoming events and book news as well. And then if you guys could do us a favor, click when you're done watching this day, go back into the video, find it in your timeline, and click to share it. Maybe you share it as a message with somebody who has been saying, hey, I got to get my book published, like me, right? I was there before. Maybe you just share it as a post, because you never know when you can find somebody in your network that is thinking about self-publishing and they're struggling with it. And that counts as your post for today on LinkedIn. So share it along. And then if you're interested, like Don said, reach out to him and contact him. So Don, thank you so much. It's a little bit of a dreary day here in Michigan, but the sun is shining for me. I don't know about for you, but the sun is shining. What's next on your agenda for today?
Oh, I got a few meetings that I have to attend, but yeah, and the sun is always shining, no matter how cloudy it is. Just imagine if you ever go up in an airplane, the sun is always shining.
You just got to look for it, right, in the background.
You have to look for it. Thank you so much, Brenda, for having me. It's been an absolute joy. I appreciate it, and I look forward to hearing from some of your community.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Don. And we will get together for that pie. Once the world opens up, I've got a couple of gift cards for a place called Grand Traverse Pie. It's in Troy, Michigan. And you're definitely on my list to meet up in person. And, once we're all safe and ready and the restaurants are back open again. Right. But we will see each other. So thank you again, sir. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, guys, stay healthy and stay safe, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend. And I look forward to watching all of you guys on LinkedIn. Take care, everyone. Thank you.